Hey, Zach here, and welcome to the Used Car Dealer Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mike Hanna, the CEO of TrueSpot, an innovative company revolutionizing fixed ops with real-time location tech for vehicles and keys. Mike, great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, Zach, great to be here.
So, Mike, for those unfamiliar, tell us how TrueSpot got started and what was the aha moment that led to its creation?
Yeah, great question. And kind of very kind of quick background. Myself and a lot of the core team comes out of telecom, wireless. I spent a lot of time just working with wireless technologies. Have lived through the Gs, 2Gs, 3Gs, 4Gs, 5Gs, and beyond, and kind of the implementation of all of those services in your iPhone and your Android today, location services and other things that didn't exist a couple decades ago. Really, it's been phenomenal how fast that stuff has come along. But that being said, we were deep in that. TrueSpot 2016 founded the company and really just started working with dealers. And a little bit like you, I worked at a car dealership in college. Not a lot of the industry had changed from when I was in college to where it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And a lot of that was based on consumer experience and just a lot of the operational things that happen at a dealership. So we actually started working with dealerships, building kind of a consumer experience platform to help bridge online to on lot and make that experience better. And one of the things we could do that was just what we thought was part of the experience really was locate things, cars and keys, and facilitate a better, faster customer engagement and interaction with that. And as we started to roll out the platform, dealers kept telling us more and more, "Hey, that's great, the stuff you're doing, the online to on lot and bridging, but you're tracking these cars and keys and you're able to do that. Like, that's really important. Can you just focus on that?" And so after we heard that again and again and again, that was kind of the multiple aha moment to say, okay, focus on dealer operations and what that means now that you have location of car and key, and if you can apply that. And that's where we really started to focus in on dealer operations and real-time location applied to that.
So, what were some of the early challenges you faced when bringing real-time location solutions into dealer service departments or, dealerships in general?
Yeah, always lots of challenges.
Huh.
Technology challenges early on, just operational challenges of how do you implement this is a new process. This is change management. There has to be how does it sit within a dealership from an ownership perspective, an implementation perspective, an operational perspective. So the technology piece, just to speak on that for a little bit, obviously changed and evolved through the years, and so how do we get better, more sophisticated as we did that. And the one thing we do quite uniquely, whether it's in automotive or healthcare or any other industry, is that we manage and operate our own proprietary radio network, so wireless communication system, kind of completely self-contained. And that speaks a little bit to the radio wireless backgrounds of the team. So we have quite a pretty extensive kind of radio heads, we call them, and we understand RF and mitigation and wireless interference and all these other propagation and all these other kind of things and how you design systems to best do that. So some of those challenges from the technology perspective was the initial implementations of that, working out some of those things as you implement that technology at a dealership, and how does that live there? How do they operationalize it? And I'll give you one quick example. As we started in
Mhm.
variable ops just on the sales side and helping dealers track cars and keys and implementing use cases around that, which gets really interesting. And then we had a lot of dealers say, "Hey, you got to do this in my fixed ops." And we said, "Okay, fine." And then we just did it in fixed ops, but they're completely different muscle memory, completely different gears. And so the first kind of we stubbed our toe many times in the service drive of like how do you attach a car and a key to our radio tracker, and it just didn't
Mhm.
work. Service drives are too quickly, so we came up with a very simple yet sophisticated system of replacing the hang tags with what we call kind of permanent tags that are attached to ROs or service techs, service advisors, different colors, and actually that's been phenomenal for us once we realized that, because now it's an easy attach, and then the car and the key, the hang tag, and there's actually a carabiner, so the key elegantly unattaches from the car hang tag and reattaches it done, and it doesn't affect the service drive process at all. So little things, not only the technology, but sometimes the operational things are going to be the most important things to figure out.
And TrueSpot works in several verticals, outside of just, the auto industry. What like parallels or unique challenges do you see just across all verticals that you work in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, what our perspective, just generally speaking, so we're a technology company. We have a real-time location systems like we call a location platform as a service called AccuFind. And that system, we have a bunch of patents and things that we've gotten through the years. But whether it's automotive or healthcare or air transportation, airports or construction or manufacturing, like the ability to track things in real time and then precise, especially indoor, not only creates like in different use cases, but hey, when you need something, you can find it. But what you start to see, from a kind of a holistic perspective, is that there's really big jumps in operational efficiency, workflow management, and all of these things that just have to do with certain work happens in certain places and it's all time bound. And so if you look at that from a process flow perspective, and at a dealership, it could be, the reconditioning process as a car is moving step to step to step until it's frontline ready. So we know as that vehicle moves where it's at. And then if you integrate with a bunch of other systems, either inbound and outbound, you potentially know, okay, the car's in that bay. You know what service tech is in that bay is assigned. You know what jobs are assigned to the RO for that. And those things start to correlate in real time. So you can start to map processes and workflow, create alerts, get real sort of business intelligence out of the location. So it's no longer just location, it's really operational efficiency, workflow, insights, and analytics that make a real business impact and you apply them to the business. So
So let's talk about Fixed Ops 360. How does it work? What kind of impact does it have on day-to-day operations inside a dealership?
yeah, great question. So Fixed Ops 360 is a lot like our variable ops product that we call Lot Management 360, which is really about the operational inventory management. So, not about pricing and getting a car for sale and the marketing and the things that go with it. It's all about real-time inventory management. Is it parked in the right locations? The vehicle, for example, does it have all the pictures there so that it is frontline ready? And so fixed ops is, taking that same technology, but now applying it to obviously the service department. And I mentioned a little bit before, one of the things we stubbed our toe on was the concept was great. And the service directors were like, hey, cars and keys, I need to know where they're at. And it's just, a lot of crazy things going on. And so you guys can do that. But what we couldn't do is do this really quick service drive until we figured out, okay, this is very simple. Create these permanent hang tags and just plug it in. The service drive doesn't change anything from a process perspective. So what happens now is the immediate tracking of cars and keys, no service operational disruption. But from a service advisor perspective and a service tech, you know where every car and key's at, which is great. So a lot of time gets wasted, looking for a car and key in certain situations, or even losing a key or losing track of where a car is parked. It's happened to me many times, and picking up a car from service. I waited, an hour, sometimes more. Like they couldn't find my car. Like it's crazy. Like we have, we can solve that problem. So that's part of it, and that's a big deal. But then there's the kind of information, the analytics, and the insights that come from that. So if you start to think about that when we're talking about time on wrench or applied time from a technician perspective, and you can start to improve that because, well, one, they're not looking for a car and key. You take a lot of that wasted time out of the equation, which is directly contributing back to revenue for the dealer. But then you can also start to get smarter around where is that car, how long has it been in certain locations. And maybe it's a parts waiting vehicle, for example, so it's going to be there for a few days. When that part comes in, maybe that car needs to move to the very top of somebody's list. And I see it all the time where, hey, that car's been there for 7 days. The part finally came in and it just got missed or forgotten. But we integrate with a lot of different systems. And so now you can correlate that information because maybe that car is parked in a certain area that's also for service or for parts waiting. And now the part came in and those systems are correlated. And so that car has an alert and pops to the top of the list. And the last thing, kind of a simple example, is from a customer service perspective and from a CSAT. So as that vehicle's moving through the service process, once it hits the wash, that's typically always the last step. So being able to obviously alert that, okay, this car's in the wash to the service advisor, to the customer. So there's a lot of room for us, I believe, still in fixed ops as we integrate with more fixed ops systems to automate alerts and notifications and things like that with what dealers are using today just to make things work better together faster.
And can you walk us through a real world example of a dealer using TrueSpot and the impact it's had on their productivity or their, CSI scores as a dealership?
Yeah, great question. We look at it in a lot of different ways, just from an ROI perspective. And so one of the first things, because it's probably the most simple, is tracking keys, or how many keys did you lose this month versus last month. And so what we've seen through the years, when TrueSpot is implemented, it's typically a 95% reduction in lost keys. And some dealers losing 10 keys a month, and they're not keys that are permanently lost. They're just misplaced when you sell the car when you need them. So you have to recut that key, and you're paying for the new fob and the reprogram and all that goes with it. So the very first thing is that we just almost completely wipe out the lost key cost. Um, and if you kind of start to add that up, the next is just time. And so typically in a dealership, 30 to 40 minutes of every day for most every employee is spent looking for a car or a key. So if you could just bite into that, and even if it's just 50% reduction in that, so you go from 40 minutes a day to 20 minutes a day, just because now you
Right.
have it in the palm of your hands or your desktop. Now you have 20 minutes a day to focus on sales, more customer calls, things like that. And to put it even further into context of customer and CSAT. So customers there's always this time in dealership, and a lot of customers complain it's the time it takes, and some of that's the time to find the car you're looking to test drive. You're looking for a particular VIN, you saw it online, you come into the dealership and you can't find it, or you can't find the key. Happens all the time. And so that's a very pointed pain point that TrueSpot system addresses. And so that starts to create better CSAT, faster time to test drive for the customer, and faster flow from the dealership perspective as well. So now you can handle more customers in the day if you're handling more efficiently through the process. And so it kind of compounds and compounds kind of on top of itself as far as benefits and CSAT scores and insights and analytics. Like we can count test drives, and talking a little bit about the online to online that I mentioned before. That's something we can correlate back to kind of your inventory management or merchandising solutions as well. So you start to connect, hey, how much do we spend for this particular VIN number, or VIN? We had this many impressions online, this many people calling for it. Now we can also correlate that to test drives the vehicle took as well. So
Interesting. So you're basically integrating with a lot of the key systems the dealership has to kind of connect that data with TrueSpot.
absolutely. We think integration is the key. So we view ourselves as kind of the location and enablement. And so we can track anything, car key, we can do it very quickly. We can do it in different kind of fidelity, whatever makes sense operationally for the dealer. And then we integrate a lot of systems into our platform as well. But just like the same, we want to push location intelligence out to the ecosystem because we think it's super powerful, and you can apply it to reconditioning, variable ops, fixed ops. And there's just tons of use cases where it creates a significant value. So
That's awesome. And TrueSpot is clearly an efficiency play, but it's also a customer experience play. How do you see the role of customer experience evolving in fixed ops over the next few years?
yeah, good question. So yeah, efficiency uh, for sure. Lost keys and those sort of things. Um, and fixed ops, I think some of the biggest advancements we'll start to see. Some of the things we already talked about is just you're creating a faster flow. People are waiting; they want to get their car back. Being able to do that faster, quicker, is a really big deal and adds up over time. And then starting to see more of these kind of smart integrations where it could be even my friends in fixed ops have said, hey, you got to implement the Domino's pizza tracker across fixed ops so we can monitor and manage and see the car workflow and apply that back. And so when we have a tool for location, it does a lot of things from the fixed ops perspective. But we're even more excited to partner with existing technology companies in the fixed ops space because they do a lot of management, the workflow, all those things that go with it. And so if we can provide the location to them, I think they're better served to that, deliver that end customer experience, whether it's the alerts that say, hey, this vehicle has now entered the wash bay, and in 10 minutes, your car will be ready for pickup. And then obviously education of the kind of the ecosystem, whether it's the service advisors or the techs or whatever the case may be. So we want to be more that enabler for that. But we see that already today in a lot of our fixed ops customers.
And as we kind of look into the future, what new features or innovations are you most excited about bringing to market in 2025?
Huh. Yeah, it's a good question. So we're always developing and kind of iterating kind of new technologies. Some of this stuff is super geeky that I'm most excited about. And maybe I'll just share it just for the sake of geek purposes.
Sure.
So we manage and maintain and operate our own private radio network. We're kind of like a small, mini, tiny wireless carrier, like an AT&T or Verizon. We do it at a campus level, and that allows us to deploy our system in a way that's pretty unique and to manage everything around it. So we have several patents, and a lot of it's based on that technology and how that works. One of the things we've done pretty uniquely is increase the capacity of that system pretty significantly. So we've made advancements through the years, and just recently we had a breakthrough that increases our capacity by 3x. And so that just means at a kind of data pipe level, we're able to move a lot more through the system, and it just creates better location capability, better experience around it. That's pretty geeky, but that's one of the things that is a big deal that we just actually released last month. From a service and experience perspective, I would say a lot of it for us is integration with partners. We partner with Reynolds and KeyTrack, for example, and we see tremendous value in some of the things that we've been talking about, enabling location in kind of all facets of the dealership, from variable ops and fixed ops and reconditioning and helping drive that kind of full integration of location and to fulfill what we believe is kind of the full promise of it when it's operationalized completely.
And does AI play a role in your software or your operations, today?
Yeah, absolutely. And in different ways. And there's different definitions for AI. On the geeky side, when we deploy a campus-based network, we look at a lot of things from the data and how it moves across that network and how we assimilate that network and tune and optimize it. So some of that we can call AI and how we do that. But more interesting, I think, is what we call location intelligence. And it's basically using that location to automate workflow, provide insights, create actions and activities. And so whether it's technically AI by some decisions, we're using location to drive an artificial intelligence kind of interaction that we believe is super interesting and kind of our focus when it relates to AI, but using location as the power behind that.
So, kind of shifting gears to more kind of leadership question, as CEO, what's been the biggest leadership lesson you've learned while scaling a technology company in a traditional industry like auto retail?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say the answer is just perseverance. And so especially new technology, and introduction, implementation, operationalization, and scale. Those are all different things kind of through the process of that. I think you just have to be persistent. Like you can see, hey, the value is there, the opportunity is there. There's significant just increase in productivity and efficiency gains and cost savings, all those sort of things. So you just have to have the perseverance to kind of continue to push the rock up the hill. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is like, don't give up. Like everybody, some people may think you're crazy or it's and you'll stub your toe here and there and those things along the way. But I think perseverance is probably the key lesson from my perspective is, yeah, you keep going. Eventually you'll get there. Just don't give up.
Yeah, I definitely second that, Mike, from my own journey as well. And, lastly, what advice would you give to dealers, maybe listening to the podcast? They want to modernize their service departments. Maybe they've heard about technology like yours. Where do they start in this process?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one we look at quite a bit. And so there's a few ways to look at it. Actually, I spent some time in the last couple of weeks looking at this because sometimes I like to take a step back and kind of reflect. And with new technology introduction, there's I think it was, I forget the author's name, but jumping the chasm. So you have your innovators and your early adopters, and that sort of thing. I think we've all seen just the kind of the bell curve of adoption. And so I think from our perspective, with location and location intelligence is what we're focused on. We're still in the earliest stages. We're like in the early adopters now, moving in, or the innovators now moving into the early adopters. And so I think being able to from a dealership perspective, start to see what the benefits are, because we're well past the stage of proof of concept. It's something once you implement it and operationalize it at a dealership, it's fantastic. It can create a digital twin of your dealership, and the benefits, it pays for itself many times over. So I think, as we continue to mature the technology and as we start to scale with more partners, I think, from a dealership perspective, well, I'm kind of biased to location, but I think location is kind of potentially the next utility. And a lot of our dealer partners, would tell me this specifically. You guys are like next internet. Like the internet came along and revolutionized our business in the early 2000s, and now it's everything's online and everything's interconnected. And at some point, because the power is there, everything will have to be located, just because it just makes so much sense and it means so much to operations, workflow, exceptions, and those sort of things. So I guess my advice to dealers is, and not to push location, but I think location is one of those things that can be a transformative operational benefit, whether it's variable ops, fixed ops, or reconditioning, kind of everything in between, and create just tremendous valuable insights in that. So I guess I don't have a specific recommendation except for I think technology is one of those things that can create some pretty significant benefits. So.
Awesome. And very well said, Mike. Appreciate you joining the podcast today. I've learned a lot personally.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. It's great to be on with you.